Last month, I took a StrengthsFinders test for the first time and I made a video about it. This kind of paints it as like, you're a big dreamer. But after I made it, I was like, cool. Those are my strengths. What do I do with that information? If you're like me and you're like, I don't really know what to do with my StrengthsFinder results, this video's for you. After I took the test, I was now aware of my 5 strengths.
Futuristic, a developer, focus, activator, and empathy.
But I felt stuck in what I wanted to do from there. Like, great, I have this activator strength, but how does this apply to my daily life? When I took the StrengthsFinders test, I was feeling a little burnout with my career. I've been a social media manager, helping other people with their content for the last 7 years, and I had just come to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore, and like, everything I loved about that job wasn't filling me up anymore, and so I needed to pivot. And so I was kind of going into StrengthsFinder asking the question like, where am I best placed? What should I be doing? I've been thinking about going more into corporate learning workshops and teaching people about leadership and the Enneagram and how to deal with burnout. And that to me has been sounding like a joy and something maybe cool for the future, but I wasn't quite sold on it. I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to cut off this social media management part of my life yet. So I hired a StrengthsFinders coach to help me understand my strengths and how best to use them. The coach I found is Tracy G. She is amazing. She is certified and trained to work within 4 different frameworks. Those are cultural intelligence, the Enneagram, Working Genius, and Gallup StrengthsFinder. We met up for an hour coaching call and she posed this question: what are the conditions your strengths are happiest in? She talked me through the terminology of all of my 5 strengths. One thing that I thought was really cool was that your StrengthsFinder results, there's like a 1 in 33 million chance of someone else getting your exact same mix of strengths. Like, it is the ultimate unique fingerprint. And from there, we dove into practical application. First, we looked at the developer strength, and she asked me, where are times that you see yourself using this strength? And I could think of something in recent times where I was encouraging a friend as she was going through a job finding process. And I just loved seeing all of those developing steps as she like took a course and then she got a new job and then just all of those going through that process I thought was really beautiful, and I loved being a cheerleader through it. And this is what I thought was really helpful. She was like, that's awesome, but how do you apply that to yourself? Can you use your strengths on yourself? Like, can I develop myself and do the same cheerleading when I am trying to build up a skill that is gonna take time? Like, for example, I really want to be like a corporate speaker. I wanna go to conferences. I wanna help other people in the flesh understand their personalities, and that is scary. It's freaking scary. And so how can I apply the developer strength to myself in this area? How can I look at it through a long-term lens? And this was the same with my second strength, empathy. How do I use that sixth sense, that ability to know what other people are feeling? How do I use that on myself? How do I take myself out of my day and say, hey, Abby, what are your feelings? What's going through your head right now? What do you need? Can I use that on myself? Another thing I found helpful was like those with an empathy strength, they need solitude. They need time to recharge because it is exhausting. If you're an HSP or a very empathetic person, it is exhausting feeling everyone else's emotions and also dealing with yours. So you need time to rest and recharge and get back to you. My next strength was activator, and she asked me, what are times you see yourself using this strength? And the biggest thing I could think of was, well, I do content creation for a living, right? Like I'm making YouTube videos all of the time. And one thing that helps me in that process is I'm not a perfectionist. I'm all about efficiency. Like I say, the best thing you can do is just jump in, just go. And if you need to pick up skills along the way, that's great. Grab them as you go. Get better incrementally with each video or each thing that you're creating. And I think that really helps me in my life take my ideas and make them into actual things without too much of a delay in between that period. Yes, okay. One thing Tracy said is that activators have a bias for action, and that is totally true for me. I am just like a very much jump in the pool and then like figure out how to swim kind of person. Like, let's just freaking go. And I love looking at that in terms of how can that help me in a business setting? How can that help me as I try to pivot to my next kind of career objective? The biggest thing I talked about in my first StrengthsFinders video was my futuristic strength. My fourth strength was futuristic, and one thing that is a downside to having this clarity and imagination for the future is that it can get kind of anxious when you think about the future so much that you're not really living in the present, and you're kind of imagining all of like the worst case scenarios that could happen because you're thinking about the future so much. So a helpful tip for those of you who struggle with this, Tracy brought this up in our call. She said, imagine the positives. I have anxiety about the future in terms of family planning. Like, when are we gonna have kids? What's that gonna look like? What's gonna feel like to be a parent? How is that gonna change who I am as a person? I have all of these fears, right? And she was like, what if you look at it in terms of, I feel excited to have like little hands in mine. I feel excited to have family vacations and like thinking about all the positive things that could happen instead of just dwelling on all the crazy bad things that could happen or the scary unknowns. My last strength was focus, and what I loved about this and what I think could be really helpful for you if you also get a StrengthsFinder coach is they can look at your strengths and say, hey, this strength, like focus, works really well with this strength, activator. So activator gets things going, right? They get it ignited, they light the match. Well, focus is that long-term zone in kind of, I'm gonna get this done kind of thing. She likened it to like a baseball pitcher, and as an Angels fan, I immediately thought of Shohei and how focused he is on the mound. And like, I think that is what a great pairing to have an activator and a focus. So if you also get a StrengthsFinder coach, which I highly recommend, they'll be able to look at your unique fingerprint of skill sets and show you how all your little guys are working together, okay? Overall, the coolest thing about this session was kind of the culmination. After we had gone through all 5 of my strengths and really talked about how those practically apply to my day-to-day life, she asked me, what is a time where you felt like you utilized all of these strengths at once? And I was able to bring up an example of something that happened in recent weeks. I went to Chicago. I actually posted about it on my community tab. I went to Chicago and taught this Enneagram workshop at this marketing summit, and I have never felt more myself than in that moment. It was using all of my skills in one place, and it felt joyful, it felt easy, it felt good, and so I hadn't really put that into perspective. I hadn't really thought about it too much. So having to sit down and think about, okay, when did I use this strength and when did I use this strength and how did I put it into practice? That was incredibly healing and illuminating for me, because I was able to be like, okay, I think I'm on the right track. I think I'm doing what I need to be doing. And if you are struggling with figuring out what you want to do with your life, I highly recommend getting in touch with your strengths, hiring a StrengthsFinder coach if you need that extra motivation, and figuring it out, because I feel like I'm a new person, and I don't say that lightly because I know it's a big deal to kind of proclaim like, I'm a new person. Well, I really do. I think the experience of figuring out what my strengths are and then applying them in a practical way and understanding how practically those are working in my life, that was really, really special to me. I highly recommend Tracy as a StrengthsFinder coach, by the way. I will put all of her information in the description down below. My session was $175 for an hour of her expertise and her time, and it was well worth it. So yes, all of that will be in the description down below. Subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about discovering your personality and learning more about yourself and who you are and the strengths that you bring to the table. Thanks to the patrons for supporting this channel, and I will see you in the next video.